I'm freezing, let me in, I beg. I'll reward you. The promises of the poor Apache woman. The small shuttle trembled as it descended through the swirling dust clouds of Sundown Ridge. Lila pressed her hands against the cool metal wall of the cabin and tried to calm her racing heart. Her stomach was already heavy with the child she carried, and now, alone in this unknown world, every sound of the shuttle made her jump. The settlement below looked like a mirage, a handful of wooden buildings standing beside strange glowing towers that hummed softly in the wind. She had left her home on Earth with hope in her heart. The letters had promised a new life, a kind husband, and a warm home, but those promises had ended in silence. Her intended groom had never come. Now, she was a mail-order bride without a groom, arriving on a planet she had only ever imagined in words and dreams. The shuttle landed with a soft thump on a landing pad beside a low building labeled Sundown Ridge Settlement Office. The ramp unfolded, and Lila stepped onto the red, sandy soil. The air smelled faintly of ozone and sun-baked earth. A few settlers watched her arrival, their curious eyes hidden behind wide-brimmed hats and tinted goggles. A small robot rolled forward, its wheels kicking up tiny clouds of red dust. It beeped and extended a mechanical arm holding a clipboard. "Identification and settlement papers, please," it said in a polite mechanical voice. Lila handed over the papers, her hands trembling slightly. The robot scanned them quickly and nodded. "Welcome to Sundown Ridge. Please follow the path to the central lodging area. Housing has been arranged for you," she nodded, trying to hide her nerves. She stepped onto the path, which glowed faintly under her feet. Floating cacti and hovering rocks lined the way, giving the settlement an almost magical appearance. The buildings themselves were a curious mix. Some were wooden and familiar, like old Western towns in history books, and others were sleek metal structures with bright lights and moving parts that hummed softly. Lila felt a strange mix of wonder and fear. This world was beautiful, but it was not the home she had dreamed of. Not yet. The lodging building was small and cozy. A friendly woman greeted her at the door. Her hair was tied back in a loose braid, and she wore boots that glinted in the sunlight. "You must be Lila," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Mara, the settlement's caretaker. Come inside. You'll need rest after your journey." Lila followed her inside. The air was cool and smelled faintly of herbs and fresh bread. Mara handed her a small tray with a cup of warm tea. "You'll be living here until your guard arrangements are finalized," Mara said gently, noticing Lila's nervous glance. "Don't worry, we'll make sure you're comfortable." Lila nodded, taking a sip of the tea. She tried to imagine her life here, the child she carried, the new home she would have, but the uncertainty weighed heavily on her heart. She didn't even know if anyone would come for her, if anyone would care. Later, she stepped outside to explore the settlement. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the red plains. Robots moved quietly around, tending floating gardens and fixing hovering wagons. Children played near a fountain that shot streams of glowing water into the air. Everything was strange, yet strangely beautiful. But despite the sights and the gentle hum of machines, Lila felt a pang of loneliness. She had hoped to arrive and see the man who had written to her, the man who had promised to be her partner, but he was nowhere to be found. She wandered through the settlement, her hand resting gently on her stomach. She whispered small, hopeful words to the child growing inside her. "You'll be safe," she said softly. "We'll find a way." As she walked back toward the lodging building, she noticed a cluster of settlers gathered near the central square. They were looking at something, or someone. Curiosity tugged at her, and she moved closer. A figure appeared over the horizon, riding what looked like a horse, but not a normal horse. Its hooves glowed faintly, hovering inches above the ground. Dust swirled around the rider as they approached, and a hush fell over the crowd. Lila's heart skipped a beat. She had never seen anyone like this before. The rider wore a wide-brimmed hat and a long coat that flapped in the breeze. They moved with a confidence that made the settlers step aside instinctively. The horse-like creature carried a soft blue glow beneath its hooves, and its eyes reflected the setting sun. Lila felt a mix of fear and fascination. Who was this person? Was it a lawkeeper? A traveler? Someone sent by her intended groom? She didn't know. The rider slowed near her, tipping the hat slightly. "Evening," a warm voice said, calm and steady. "Name's Cade. You must be the new arrival." Lila nodded, unsure what to say. The settlers whispered among themselves, casting curious glances at her and the mysterious cowboy. "You're alone," Cade said gently, his eyes soft but perceptive. Settlements like this, it's not easy to be alone. Lila swallowed. I didn't expect anyone to come for me. Her voice was small, almost a whisper. My groom never arrived. Cade nodded slowly, as if he understood more than she could say. Then we'll make sure you're not alone, he said simply. There was no pressure in his words, only calm assurance. For the first time since she had arrived, Lila felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she wasn't completely alone in this strange world. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the sky turned a deep purple, streaked with glowing nebula clouds. Lights flickered across the settlement, and small drones hovered above, scanning the area for any trouble. Lila followed Cade as he walked toward the central square, pointing out different parts of the settlement. The floating gardens, the self-driving wagons, and the small market where settlers traded goods from other planets. This place has everything you need, Cade said. Well, almost everything. But it has something more important. People who will watch out for each other. Lila smiled faintly, grateful for his kindness. She had imagined coming to a new world filled with strangers and danger, but instead, she found something different. A quiet strength in the people around her, and someone who seemed to understand what it meant to be alone and afraid. As the evening deepened, Lila returned to the lodging building. She unpacked her few belongings, arranging them neatly on a small table. Outside, the wind carried soft electronic chirps and the faint scent of wild desert flowers. She sat on the edge of her bed, resting a hand on her stomach. I hope you'll like it here, she whispered to her child. I hope this place will feel like home someday. A soft knock at the door made her look up. It was Cade again, holding a small lantern that cast a gentle glow across the room. Thought you might like some company, he said simply. No need to talk if you don't want. Just company. Lila nodded, feeling warmth in her chest. She didn't know how the days ahead would unfold, but for the first time, the idea of facing them alone didn't seem quite as frightening. Outside, the twin moons rose over Sundown Ridge, casting a silver light over the strange, beautiful settlement. The floating cacti glowed faintly, and the soft hum of technology blended with the quiet rustle of the wind. In that moment, Lila felt a small spark of hope flicker to life. Maybe this world, so alien, so strange, could become a home. Maybe she wasn't truly alone after all. And somewhere beyond the horizon, Cade's hovering horse waited patiently, ready for the journey that was just beginning. The next morning, Lila woke to a soft light spilling through the window. The air smelled faintly of metal and wildflowers, a strange but comforting combination. She rubbed her eyes and smiled at the small cot beside her. For the first time in many months, she felt the tiny weight of hope pressing gently in her chest. A soft knock at the door made her start. Good morning, Cade said from outside, his voice calm and warm. Thought you might like to see the settlement before the sun got too high. Lila hesitated, but curiosity got the better of her. All right, she said softly, and Cade stepped aside. Outside, the settlement was already alive. Robots tended floating gardens, small children ran laughing around the market, and settlers moved with purpose, carrying baskets or adjusting hovering wagons. Cade walked beside her, tall and confident, yet somehow gentle, like a shadow of safety moving through the chaos. This place is amazing, Lila said, her eyes wide. It's like a mix of a frontier town and a dream I didn't know I had. Cade chuckled. That's one way to put it. Sundown Ridge isn't perfect, but it's home for those who choose to stay. And it's full of surprises. Lila noticed small, unusual details as they walked. Some fences hovered slightly above the ground. Others seemed to glow faintly when touched. Small drones zipped through the air, carrying goods or guiding lost animals back to pens. Even the horses were strange. They glided just above the ground, leaving shimmering footprints on the dirt. Cade pointed to a wide-open area. We have a small festival every week. Settlers bring food, show off inventions, and share stories. It's a good way to meet people, and to see if the place is really as friendly as it seems. Lila nodded, trying to imagine herself there, talking to strangers, and laughing like she used to on Earth. The thought made her heart ache a little. She still felt the empty space left by the man who had promised to meet her. Cade noticed her pause. You know, he said gently, being alone here doesn't have to mean being lonely. You've got friends already.
Me, for starters.
Lila looked at him, surprised. There was something in his eyes, calm, steady, honest, that made her want to believe him. Thank you, she said softly. I don't know what to do without someone to guide me. Cade smiled. Then I'll guide you. Not as a husband, not yet, but as someone who has been around here long enough to know how to survive, and maybe even enjoy it. They spent the morning exploring the settlement together. Lila learned to operate simple floating tools, like small drones that carried water to plants, and she watched Cade demonstrate how to repair the hovering fences when they wobbled or flickered. He moved with ease, explaining everything in patient, simple terms. "You're very clever," Cade said, noticing how quickly Lila learned. "You'll fit right in." Lila blushed. I want to do more than just survive here." Cade nodded. "That's the right attitude. Sundown Ridge needs people who can think, who can adapt. Not just strong arms, though those help too." He winked, and for the first time, Lila laughed freely. As the sun climbed higher, they approached the settlement's central market. Small stalls lined the area, selling foods that smelled strange but delicious, mechanical tools and glowing fabrics that shimmered in the sunlight. Children ran past laughing, chasing tiny robotic animals that hopped and flew in intricate patterns. Lila stopped to watch a little girl trying to catch a floating butterfly made of light. She smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in months. "This place sits alive," she said. "Alive, yes," Cade said. "And full of secrets. Some you'll like, some, well, you'll just have to learn." He grinned. "Don't worry, I'll show you the fun ones first." He led her to a small stall where a group of settlers demonstrated a strange device. A hovering basket floated above a spinning disc, and when they placed small plants inside, it arranged them perfectly without touching them. Lila gasped. How does it do that?" she asked. "Magnetics, sensors, and a little bit of frontier magic," Cade said with a wink. "Or science. Depends on who you ask." Lila laughed, her voice lighter than it had been in months. For a moment she forgot she was alone, pregnant and far from Earth. Here with Cade, the settlement, and the strange glowing skies, life felt possible. By late afternoon they returned to a small workshop Cade kept near the edge of the settlement. Tools, gadgets, and glowing parts covered every surface. Cade began showing Lila how to fix small devices, drones that had stopped moving, lights that flickered, and small hovering carts that occasionally drifted off course. "You're a fast learner," Cade said, handing her a small wrench. Most newcomers struggle with even the simplest adjustments. Lila smiled, tightening a small screw. "I guess I have no choice. Everything here is so different." Cade nodded. Different can be good. It means no one expects you to do things the old way. You can find your own path. They worked together in companionable silence, occasionally sharing small jokes or teasing each other when a tool didn't behave as expected. Lila felt a strange sense of normalcy, a feeling she hadn't known she was missing until now. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, Cade stopped and looked out across the settlement. "Evening skies here are something else," he said softly. "Makes all the hard work worth it." Lila followed his gaze. The twin moons rose, casting silver light over the hovering cacti and glowing buildings. She felt a quiet peace settle over her, and for the first time the weight of loneliness felt lighter. "Thank you," she whispered, for helping me today." Cade turned to her, his expression serious but kind. "You don't need to thank me. You'll do just fine here. And you won't be alone. Not all that I'm around." Lila felt a warmth in her chest that went beyond gratitude. It was trust, the kind that grew slowly, carefully, between two people who had seen hardship but chose to hope anyway. That night, as she lay in the small cot, Lila thought about the day. She had learned more about Sundown Ridge than she ever could have imagined. She had laughed, explored, and even felt a spark of excitement about the future. And Cade, strange, mysterious, kind, had stepped into her life unexpectedly. She wondered what tomorrow would bring. Maybe more discoveries, more laughter, maybe even friendship that could grow into something stronger. She smiled, closing her eyes, feeling the gentle movement of her child inside her. "You'll like it here," she whispered softly. "I think we'll be okay." Outside, Cade walked the perimeter of the settlement, his hovering horse gliding silently over the red plains. He glanced back toward the lodging building and smiled faintly. Lila was brave, stronger than she realized. He would make sure she never felt alone in this strange, beautiful world. And somewhere beyond the hills, strange lights flickered in the distance. The frontier held mysteries, some of them strange, some of them wonderful. But Lila, with her courage, her child, and her unexpected ally, was ready to face them all. The day had ended, but a new chapter in her life was only beginning. Sundown Ridge wasn't just a settlement. It was a place where life, hope, and the promise of family could grow, even in the most unexpected ways. And as Lila drifted to sleep, she knew that tomorrow she would explore further, meet more settlers, and discover that even on a strange frontier planet, she could belong. The next morning, Lila woke to the gentle hum of the settlement. The sun was just rising over the glowing plains, painting the horizon in soft pink and gold. She stretched and felt the small movement of her child inside her, a quiet reminder that she had a reason to be brave. Today, she thought, would be a day of discovery. Cade was waiting outside, leaning against the hovering horse, his hat tipped back slightly, revealing a faint smile. "Ready for another day?" he asked. Lila nodded, adjusting her scarf against the warm breeze. "I think so." "Where are we going today?" "Somewhere interesting," Cade said, his eyes twinkling. "I'll show you parts of Sundown Ridge that most newcomers never see, and maybe a few secrets that even some settlers don't know." The thought made Lila's curiosity spike. She had already discovered so much about this strange frontier planet, but the idea of hidden mysteries made her heart race with excitement. They walked through the settlement, passing children playing with robotic animals and settlers tending to floating gardens. Cade pointed out small innovations hidden in plain sight, a fence that corrected itself when it wobbled, a water dispenser that hovered beside thirsty plants, and a market stall where glowing fruits hovered just above their baskets, ripening perfectly in midair. "Everything here seems alive," Lila said, glancing around.
Even the machines feel friendly.
Cade nodded. "That's the beauty of Sundown Ridge. It's not just about technology. It's about balance. People, machines, and nature working together. Most outsiders don't get it." Lila smiled, feeling proud to be learning so quickly. "I'm glad I get to see it." After a short walk, Cade led her to a narrow canyon at the edge of the settlement. The walls were jagged but smooth, glowing faintly in shades of green and blue. Small, hovering orbs of light drifted lazily along the canyon floor, illuminating plants that seemed to sway to their own rhythm. "This is one of my favorite places," Cade said softly. "Not many people come here, but it's peaceful, and it holds, well, let's just say it holds more than most people notice." Lila looked around in awe. The canyon felt alive, almost as if it were breathing. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Cade smiled. "It is, and it's full of surprises. Follow me." Behind it was a hidden workshop, filled with strange devices, glowing maps, and hovering tools. Lila's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like it. "What is this place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's my little secret," Cade said with a grin. "I fix things, invent things, and sometimes discover things that even the settlement doesn't know about. Most people think I'm just a cowboy who rides around on a hovering horse." Lila laughed softly. "You're much more than that." Cade shrugged, but his eyes were gentle. "I've learned that being ready for the unexpected is the best way to survive here. And sometimes the unexpected can be wonderful." He handed her a small device shaped like a glowing cube. "Want to try something?" Lila hesitated, then nodded. She held the cube in her hands, and it floated gently above her palms, rotating slowly. A soft light projected a tiny holographic map of the canyon, showing hidden paths, water sources, and even small animals that were usually invisible to the naked eye. "It's amazing," Lila said, turning it slowly. "It shows everything, even things I didn't know were there." Cade watched her carefully. "That's the point. Sundown Ridge has a lot of secrets, but it also has people who care about each other. Knowledge is more valuable than anything else here." They spent the morning exploring hidden paths in the canyon, using Cade's devices to track small, glowing creatures and map safe routes. Lila's confidence grew with every step. She laughed when a tiny robotic lizard scuttled across a hovering rock, startling her, and Cade chuckled beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. Around midday, they reached a small grove of glowing trees. The air was filled with soft light, and the tree's leaves shimmered with a silver hue. Lila sat beneath one, her hand resting on her stomach. "I can't believe I'm here," she said softly. "It's so different from everything I knew. And yet, it feels like home already." Cade sat beside her. "You'll make it home," he said quietly. "I can see it. You have a strength that surprises even me." Lila smiled faintly, feeling warmth in her chest. She wasn't sure if it was just gratitude or something more, but being near Cade made the world feel less frightening. "Thank you," she whispered. For a while they sat in silence, listening to the hum of the canyon and the gentle chirping of tiny creatures. Then Cade stood, offering his hand. Come on, I want to show you one last thing before we head back. He led her to a small cliff overlooking the settlement. From this height, Sundown Ridge looked like a patchwork of light and color. Floating gardens, glowing pathways, and shimmering rooftops stretching across the red plains. It's incredible, Lila breathed, leaning against the railing. I've never seen anything like it. Cade nodded. It's beautiful, yes, but it's also fragile. The settlement relies on every person here, every choice, every little bit of care. That's why I wanted you to see it. You're part of this now. Lila felt a wave of emotion. She had arrived alone, unsure of her future, but now she could see herself as part of something larger, a community, a world full of wonder, and maybe, just maybe, a life she could call her own. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the plains, Cade pulled out a small floating lantern.
He handed it to Lila. For you, he said simply.
So when you walk back to your lodging at night, you'll have a little light to guide you. Lila took the lantern, her fingers brushing his briefly. She felt a warmth that went beyond the glow of the small light. Thank you, Cade, she said softly. You're welcome, he replied, his voice steady. You don't need to thank me. I'll always be around when you need help. On the way back to the lodging, they encountered other settlers preparing for the evening festival. Music drifted through the air, strange instruments that hummed and glowed as they played, and the aroma of cooked food mixed with the scent of the desert flowers. Children danced with small robotic companions, and adults shared stories of their day. Lila watched, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't known she needed. Cade stayed close, pointing out people she might meet, introducing her to friendly faces, and explaining the unique quirks of Sundown Ridge. By the time they returned to the lodging, Lila felt tired but happy. The day had been filled with discovery, laughter, and small moments that made her feel less alone. She settled onto her cot, holding the glowing lantern close. Cade knelt beside her, adjusting the light so it cast a soft glow across the room. You're learning quickly, he said with a smile. And you're fitting in faster than I expected. Lila laughed softly. I guess I don't have much choice. Everything here is so alive, and I don't want to miss anything. Cade nodded. Good. Because Sundown Ridge has a lot to offer, but it's also full of challenges. You'll face them, though. I can see it. Lila felt a surge of confidence. For the first time since her arrival, she believed she could handle this new world. She wasn't alone. Not with Cade, not with the settlement, and not with the child growing inside her. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Lila thought about the canyon, the hidden workshop, and the glowing cliff. She thought about the strange, beautiful world she had stepped into, and about the cowboy who had appeared unexpectedly in her life. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new discoveries, and new connections, and with Cade by her side, she felt ready to face whatever the frontier had in store. Outside, Sundown Ridge glowed softly under the twin moons. The settlement was alive with light, laughter, and gentle movement, and in that quiet, beautiful moment, Lila knew she had found a place where she could belong. The frontier was vast and mysterious, but she was no longer afraid. With courage, curiosity, and a growing trust in the cowboy who had stepped up when she needed someone most, Lila felt the first spark of true hope for the life she was about to build. The morning sun rose over Sundown Ridge, painting the red plains in shades of orange and gold. The settlement buzzed with excitement. Today was the weekly Frontier Festival, the event Cade had promised Lila she would see. Music floated through the air from strange instruments that glimmered in sunlight, and the smell of baked goods mixed with roasted nuts and glowing fruits filled the streets. Children ran with small robotic animals, laughing as the machines danced and spun. Lila adjusted her scarf and held the small lantern Cade had given her. She felt a flutter of nerves. This was her first real festival in Sundown Ridge, and she wanted to make a good impression, not just as a newcomer, but as someone who could belong here, even with a child on the way. Cade appeared beside her, the hovering horse gliding quietly over the ground. You ready? He asked, tipping his hat. Lila nodded, taking a deep breath. I think so. I don't know anyone here yet. I don't want to embarrass myself. Cade smiled gently. You won't. Just be yourself. Everyone here respects people who are honest, kind, and willing to try new things. That's you. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. His confidence in her was comforting, more than she realized. Together they walked into the festival. The streets were alive with light and color. Holographic banners swayed above the buildings, showing glowing animals, planets, and patterns that danced in the sunlight. Stalls offered everything from floating fruits and mechanical gadgets to handmade fabrics that shimmered like liquid silver. Settlers greeted them warmly, introducing themselves with friendly nods and small bows. Lila felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She had learned much about Sundown Ridge in the past days, but this was a chance to truly belong, to interact with the community and show them who she was. Cade stayed close, pointing out friendly faces and explaining some of the more unusual customs. "See that stall?" he said, nodding toward a table where glowing fabrics shifted colors as they were touched. "The woman running it has been here since the beginning. She can tell almost everything about you just by looking at what you pick. Don't be shy." Lila laughed softly. "That's amazing." They moved through the festival, trying small foods, watching children play with robotic animals, and even joining in a game where settlers had to guide glowing orbs through a maze without touching the sides. Leela was surprised at how much she laughed, forgetting for a while the fear and loneliness she had carried when she first arrived. But the festival was more than fun. As they reached the center of the settlement, Cade paused, glancing around carefully. "Sometimes the festival draws people who aren't always friendly," he said quietly. "Nothing dangerous, but unexpected visitors can cause confusion." Lila looked at him, unsure what he meant. Before she could ask, a loud clattering sound came from a nearby stall. A small drone had malfunctioned, spinning wildly and knocking over baskets of glowing fruits. Children squealed and ran to avoid it, while the settlers tried to catch the spinning machine. Cade stepped forward, calm and confident. Lila noticed how everyone instinctively made space for him, trusting him to handle the situation. He didn't raise his voice or yell. He simply approached the drone, analyzing its movements. Using a small tool from his belt, he adjusted its sensors and guided it gently back to its owner. The drone hovered quietly. The chaos stopped almost as suddenly as it had begun. Lila watched, impressed. "You make it look so easy," she said. Cade shrugged. "Experience and paying attention." Sundown Ridge rewards people who notice the small things. The settlers around them clapped and thanked Cade. He nodded politely, then turned to Lila. "Your turn," he said with a wink. "See that corner over there?" He pointed to a small workshop set up for the festival. "They need volunteers to help with a puzzle station. Think you can handle it?" Lila hesitated and smiled. "I think I can try." Together, they approached the workshop. The puzzle station involved arranging small glowing tiles to complete a pattern, and it required careful observation and steady hands. Lila concentrated, placing each tile carefully. Cade offered quiet encouragement, guiding her without taking over. Slowly, the pattern came together, and the crowd nearby cheered. "You did it," Cade said, smiling. "I think you're fitting in just fine." Lila blushed, feeling proud. For the first time since her arrival, she felt a real sense of belonging. As the festival continued, Cade led her to a small open area where settlers gathered to share stories. One by one, they told tales of the frontier, of planets visited, inventions created, and lessons learned. Lila listened, captivated by their words, and felt an urge to share her own story. "I came here alone," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I was supposed to have a husband waiting for me, but he never came. I didn't know what I would do. But thanks to this settlement, and thanks to Cade, I've learned that I can be brave, that I can belong here, even without what I expected." The crowd listened quietly, and when she finished, a gentle applause filled the area. Lila smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes, not of sadness, but of relief and joy. She had faced the unknown, and she had found a place for herself and her child. Cade's eyes met hers, and she felt a warmth spread through her chest. He didn't say anything, just nodded, letting her know silently that she was not alone, that she was seen, and that she mattered. As the festival began to wind down, the sky darkened and the twin moons rose again, casting a silver glow over the settlement. Lila and Cade walked toward the edge of the plains where the hovering horses awaited. "You did wonderfully today," Cade said quietly. "You handled the crowd, the festival, even the unexpected chaos." "I'm proud of you." Lila smiled, resting her hand on her stomach. "I couldn't have done it without you. You helped me feel like I belonged here." Cade tipped his hat, a soft grin on his face. "And you've helped me remember why I stay here. It's people like you who make Sundown Ridge feel alive." For a moment they simply stood there, watching the glowing settlement. The wind rustled the floating cacti, and tiny lights shimmered across the plains. Lila felt the gentle weight of her child inside her and knew, with certainty, that she had found a safe place for both of them. Cade extended his hand. "Come on, Let's take a ride before the night fully sets in. Lila took his hand, and together they mounted the hovering horses. The sensation was exhilarating yet calming, gliding effortlessly over the plains, the cool wind brushing their faces. She laughed softly, feeling a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in months. "Ready for home?" Cade asked, glancing at her. Lila nodded, her heart full. "Home. It feels like here. With you. With this settlement." They returned to the lodging building, where Mara and a few settlers were waiting with small gifts, a glowing blanket for the child, a basket of floating fruit, and a handmade toy. Lila felt a lump in her throat. The kindness of strangers, the care they showed, made her realize that she was truly part of something bigger now. "Thank you," she said softly, holding the gifts. I feel so welcome here." "You deserve it," Mara said warmly. "You've already shown courage and kindness. Sundown Ridge is lucky to have you." As night settled over the settlement, Lila and Cade stepped outside once more. The twin moons glimmered above, reflecting softly in the glowing pathways and hovering gardens. The quiet hum of technology and the soft laughter of settlers filled the air, creating a peaceful harmony that wrapped around them like a blanket. Cade leaned slightly toward her. "I know your journey didn't start the way you hoped," he said quietly, "but I promise you, Lila, we'll face the future together. Not because it's expected, but because we want to." Lila smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that went beyond words. For the first time, she truly believed it. She wasn't alone. She had found friendship, guidance, and even love in a place she had never imagined. They watched the moons rise higher, the settlement glowing gently beneath them. The world was strange and vast, full of mystery and beauty. And in that moment, Lila knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them with courage, curiosity, and a family she had found in the most unexpected way. She rested a hand on her stomach, feeling the gentle movement of her child, and whispered softly, "We're home." Cade tipped his hat to the twin moons, a quiet smile on his face, and together they rode slowly across the plains. The glowing lights of Sundown Ridge shimmered around them, and the gentle hum of life filled the night. The frontier was vast, but for the first time Lila felt that she belonged to it, and it belonged to her. And so, on a strange but beautiful world, a mail-order bride who had arrived alone found friendship, hope, and the beginnings of a family. With the cowboy who had stepped up unexpectedly by her side, and the settlement that embraced her, she knew that the future would be bright. Together they would face it, with laughter, wonder, and love.